welcome to another Misc Monday with
Yay.
with Laura. I don't know what side of the screen you're on, so I'm just gonna go with this one.
Okay. For me, I'm on the other side, but that's cool.
Whatever side you're on, we'll go with
Yeah,
both.
somewhere.
Hello.
hmm
How are
Hi.
you this lovely, lovely Monday?
I am. I am pretty good. I'm slightly grumpy about people abandoning COVID mitigation, but
Oh,
you know, like
okay.
conferences and so on. Like I don't know if you saw any of the um, FOSDEM. It was like the free open source conference that was going on in. Was it Brussels? I don't remember. Anyway, it was going on this past weekend, and
Mhm.
like somebody posted that they were pretty sad to see how few people were masked, for instance, and so on. And then there's something that I'll be going to sometime soon, and there are no measures in place, but they are serving food, and it's going to take me like 2 hours to get there, and the thing is going to happen during dinner. And so I won't be able to eat because I won't be able to take off my mask because there isn't
Mm.
like they're not providing like an outdoor space, and they're not requiring like testing or vaccines or anything. And so I'll just be like watching people eat, and it'll be a bummer.
I'm like, ooh, I'm a little torn on this reply.
Oh,
Uh, in the fact that I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, then just go at your own risk kind of thing. Like that's my initial thought process. Um, instinct, I guess you could say, is like that. But then at the same time, I'm like, that leaves out a lot of people if they have to wear their mask the entire time. And also I'm just like, I don't know. This I'm a little torn because thanks, Anthony.
yay!
Uh, saying congrats. I will announce in like 2 weeks where I work, where I will be working. For now, just yay, I got a job, but I'm very entrenched in this like COVID thing. Um, I don't know. Like, I think it's kind of like that thought process of accessibility as well.
It so much is.
And it's
Yeah.
I'm so torn because
Why?
you have like I'm not saying so there's a spectrum of everything, right? And like to me, it when I think of it, I automatically go like it's the germaphobes is what I'm gonna go with, just because I don't have a very good vocabulary for it. Uh and in my head, I'm like, the germaphobes are the ones that are concerned about it. And you're so right about that. It's not. It's there's a lot of people that are still immune compromised, and the world is moving on and leaving them behind.
hmm Yep. I mean,
So,
my sister is immune compromised. She had an autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome that left her lower legs partially paralyzed when she was 11. And so
oh
she'll
wow,
be immune compromised for her entire life.
okay,
And so like she can't have flu vaccines.
oh wow, okay,
And so like she's an example of a person like you wouldn't look at her and think, oh, she's looking like she's ill or whatever, but she's immune compromised. I look fine, but I have damaged lungs from
mm-hmm,
pneumonia a couple of years ago.
mm-hmm.
And then there's also just like um my best friend had COVID and then had long COVID for a long time, and she sort of still does because she ended up with angina at 38. She was like otherwise completely healthy, but now she has a heart condition for the rest of her life.
Oh damn,
And um, other people, experience like cognitive problems that go on for a long time with long COVID. And there have been studies showing in I don't remember what the percentage was in they did like in out of 100 men who have had COVID, uh 4 were infertile after that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And some percentage more had a radically lowered sperm count. And I don't have sperm, right? But like apparently this is a thing that can do, like this virus can do pretty impressively bad stuff to
Mm-hmm.
your body, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't even necessarily know it until later. Like most men don't get their, sperm counts checked very regularly, so you wouldn't even
That is
know,
true.
right?
That is true.
And people don't get like lung x-rays, so you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
know. Heart things, you might not know. Like all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, like we don't scan people, we don't find out. So that means that like the percentage that we know about is definitely the floor. Like it's at least this percentage of people end up with these long-term problems. We don't know how super long because it's been 3 years, but we
Right.
know that it's at least 3 years later, people are still having these problems.
And really quick for those who are just joining, Laura and I are diving in a bit deeper about how would I recap this of like,
Like COVID mitigations at meetups and conferences and stuff.
yeah, and also, but
I'm very
diving
pro.
even diving in a little deeper about the accessibility behind it
Yeah.
of because I'm very much like my first instinct was like, yo, go at your own risk. And it's definitely something that it yes, yes, we are
Yes,
talking.
we did say
Yes,
accessibility, and then you showed up. See how that works? It's
yeah,
like magical.
it is magical. Ben shows up when we say accessibility. It
Hmm.
it definitely is something that I feel like it's one of those things like I logically get what you're saying,
Hmm.
yet emotionally, like, and I don't even know if emotionally is the right word, but part of me is like, stop taking away the fun from everyone else.
But like the
And
mitigations that I'm proposing are like provide
yeah,
a space outdoors to eat,
there's nothing
wear a
illogical
mask
about it.
inside,
There's
do
nothing
tests and
illogical about it.
vaccines.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But like
Like
my instinct is like, not being so, yeah, that's it honestly doesn't make any sense. And it's interesting. And I think that's so important for people to acknowledge their initial feelings and be open to
right.
conversation around it.
Yeah.
Um, because there's so much that goes into conferences and meetups to be able to um, make it accessible for everyone. Because if they just get the virtual version, they're not getting the networking, they're not getting, the side conversations. Um,
Hmm.
and then, oh, I like that. Also, make your COVID policies known earlier and don't change them after people have already signed up, or at least don't make the policies more lax after people signed up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was an issue at, I want to say it was maybe KubeCon, like the Kubernetes con from last spring.
Oh,
They had
okay.
said originally that they were going to require like maybe masks or vaccines. Anyway, there was something they were going to require. And then like 3 weeks before the event, they said, actually, we're not going to require these things, but people had already booked their travel. And
Interesting.
we're like, oh, okay, so now I either, lose the money that I've spent on this, or I go and expose myself to COVID in a way that I did not agree to when I signed up for this. Like I signed up for this because it was
Hmm.
supposed to be safer, and now it's not.
Hmm. Hmm. And Ben just mentioned that it might have been GitHub
Mm,
Universe as well that did that. I
could
think it's
be.
definitely something that this one is. I don't know why it's like so difficult for me to like combine the two sides of like, don't take away everybody's fun, excuse me, yet also make it accessible. And and for those who are joining now, I'm saying that as in I don't have a very good vocabulary of like, one extreme. Um, but also like how to get over that emotion, because it's
Mhm.
literally just emotion that I'm
Mhm.
saying don't take away everybody's fun, or I don't want it. That's
Mhm.
emotion. Like, I don't like wearing a mask. It does make it a lot harder for me to breathe wearing a mask. Yet,
Mhm.
if it makes it other people safer, thinking about that, of also with, I think the one time I took a flight last year in May 2022, I think I got COVID on the way home,
Oh
because I've never
no.
had COVID, and they just got rid of the mask mandates in airports.
Mhm.
And I think I got COVID from it.
Were you
So
wearing a mask?
no, because I
Oh,
was
okay.
like, yeah, we don't have to wear masks. I was so excited. So I think this is a very, very interesting topic.
Mhm.
And I know, like, my mom, she can't get the COVID vaccines or flu vaccines. She gets really, really sick. But
Mhm.
again, she also yells at people that she doesn't have to wear a mask. It was interesting. It was interesting. This is
Okay.
a very uh, something I want to mention that I learned at the Denver API meetup. The first one I went to in 2021 was, there was a company that actually made a calendar to finally work with the vaccines. I wish I remembered what the company name was. They were in Denver locally. Um,
What does
but it
that
was
mean?
really
A
cool.
calendar to work with the vaccines.
And testing, it's like, when the testing queue would get so long that people would be waiting there for like 7 hours to try to get tested,
Yeah.
or the vaccine, like that happened as well.
Mhm.
They were able to make a queue so people could look online, and they were some of the first ones to work on that, so that way people could
Oh.
see the queue
Uh-huh.
and calendar and scheduling and all of that. And I agree, Ben. I think it is. Uh, Ben said, this pandemic has been very much a showing true colors moment of history. I agree. I think it's also something where a lot of us are dealing with emotions that we have.
Mhm.
I think I don't think they're necessarily, I don't think emotions are wrong. I think that they're there. They're telling us something.
Mhm.
And instead of just fighting and saying, no, Laura, we cannot shut down and put masks on at conferences. That's
I'm
what
not
I
even
picture.
trying to shut down.
That's what I picture people when they're like, they're arguing just to argue. Um, yeah. I think these are very needed conversations,
Mhm.
because it really opens up somebody else's point of view. And I think it helps with the empathy side of it. I
Mhm.
can't talk.
Yeah. I mean, and things like air purifiers make a
Mhm.
huge difference too. So, like when my youngest went back to school, it was after his school had upgraded their entire HVAC system to hospital grade filtration. And it's
Oh.
like, so that's all of like the air that's getting circulated through the school. And then in the classrooms, there are also air purifiers um, distributed around the classroom, more than one, you know. Um, and so Jasper wears a mask at school, except he does have to eat. So he does have to take it off in order to eat. But, I wouldn't say comfortable with that risk, but we're accepting that risk because of the other stuff that's in place, like
Mhm.
mandatory vaccines and the filtration, air filtration. It makes a big difference. And like so air filtration is a toggle that folks who operate physical meeting places
Mhm.
can work on without even like I'm not saying that that would be sufficient for me to take off my mask and eat with strangers, but
Mhm.
it would still make me feel better, about being there at all, even with a mask on. And it would make everybody safer.
Mhm.
And like so that's an
Mhm.
option you can do that without even having to require anything of the people who are arriving. And you can provide an outdoor space to eat. I mean, this is San Francisco we're talking about. It's not Denver, you know? So you can, year round in San Francisco, you can provide an outdoor space for people to eat if they want to. I'm not saying require people to eat outside. I'm just saying provide it just so it's there.
Interesting. And I definitely see those being important. And also as a co-organizer of like the Denver API meetup, I don't think anybody's really brought this, at least that I've ever seen, brought this to our attention. The last year we've been holding in-person, because I think a lot of people also say like they're just going to follow the government's guidelines. So instead of like doing extra precautions, it's just like whatever the government says, which is like the default there. And I think there's definitely a lot more that could be done as well. And I'm curious upon like how, and I don't know if anybody from the audience may have other ideas for this, but let's say you want to go to a conference and they don't have any precautions. Like they're just like, hey, we're going to do what the government does. The government doesn't say we have to do anything. Voila.
It's literally nothing. We're going to do what the government says, which is nothing.
Right. Right.
Well, it's not even true, though. It's not even true because that's not what the government actually does for itself. Like if you look at gatherings of like what was it that happened recently? Oh, the World Economic Forum. They had like vaccine requirements and they had testing, and people, like if you look at the videos of people having these conversations, they're not masked, but they are wearing like winter clothing indoors, which means they probably have the windows open.
Oh, okay.
Right. And these are very small groups. And so like what the people who attend the World Economic Forum, like the standards they hold for what happens for themselves are not the standards that governments then hold for the general public.
I hear you there. What would you say if somebody does want to attend a conference and there are no precautions, like any safety things that they can do to kind of help out where they can attend?
Oh, that's right. Okay, this is my mask. So this is what I do. Like I'm going to New York City on Thursday, and I'll be putting this on before I get on the train to the airport, and I will not be taking it off until we get into our hotel room. So I'm going to be wearing this nonstop for like 8 or 10 hours. And
she got a fancy mask.
It's like this. So it's, let me get closer to the camera. It's elastomeric, which is this like sort of rubbery consistency that forms a proper seal, everywhere. Okay. It's actually pretty easy to breathe through this filter. It's way easier to breathe in this mask than in like a disposable mask. Because the disposable ones, they make me feel really constrained because they'll be like touching my nose. And even though I can still breathe, it feels, I don't know, maybe it's just like a sensory thing, but it feels restrictive and really unpleasant. So yeah, this is what I'll be wearing. And like when we're there, and this is what we did when we were in Denver too, we'll only eat in our hotel room. So we got like takeout or delivery, and then we ate in the hotel room and not indoors with other people. And so like when I go to
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up the howdy, but hello as well.
Yeah. So I'll be going to a meetup in a couple weeks, and I will be wearing that mask, and they will be serving food, and I'll just be watching people eat because I won't be taking it off.
You could also, and thinking out loud, that if it mattered on the meetup location, you could also go outside to eat and grab some food and be right back. No.
I mean, like, I could go eat on the sidewalk, but there isn't an outside of this building otherwise.
I guess in my head, and this is, I think, where a lot of people don't really think about these things, because I'm like, dude, you can just like take it outside wherever outside is.
The sidewalk.
I mean, if I was really hungry, I would do that.
Sure. But
I think,
like everybody else, like there's going to be entire conversations that are happening. People will be eating, and you know, you just have to like go stand on the sidewalk, and that's probably fine in this neighborhood. But there are neighborhoods where I wouldn't actually want to just be standing around on the sidewalk.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, at least not to eat.
I think this is a great conversation about accessibility, because I know, especially being in the tech world, we talk about a lot of the accessibility on websites, or you and I have talked about it, doing accessibility for tech writing and like blog posts and those type of things. And it goes so much more on what I think as able people, where I guess is the proper way of saying that, don't think of or may not consider.
And it's yet another example of where when you if you optimize for accessibility, it's actually beneficial to everybody. Because everybody is better off if they don't get COVID. Literally everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of having these conversations, and like before this conversation, I never really thought about it. And now I'm like, oh, now I know. So what can I do as to at least keep it in the conversation, bring it up when I can, make a difference. Like there are times where like I post on LinkedIn, and in the comments, if you post a photo, it does not let you add alt text, which is very bananas to me in the comments. But I've gotten more used to that. I'm like, yo, okay, I'm so used to adding the alt text that I will go do it. And it didn't let me. So I was like, okay. But it's a lot of those like, okay, we're aware of it. And I think that's like the progression of change. I don't know if that's the best way of saying it, is like we first have to be aware of it. Like if we're not aware of it, we're not going to know. And if we're in my opinion, a lot of times when it's just like we have to make a change, like have to, if we don't go through like the awareness to the questioning to the acceptance stage, then there's a lot of like resentment and pushing back on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's even like, that's the discovery method of pedagogy, right? I always end up tying everything back to pedagogy. It's so weird. But it's a total thing. Like if you, and like I just did that with my 5-year-old this morning. He was like, I don't want to wear a jacket. And I said, oh, can I show you the temperature? And he said, okay. And so I showed him, I was like, see, it says 38 degrees. And in our measuring system, that's only 6 degrees above, the point at like which water freezes. And if it were this temperature, the snow would not necessarily melt if we had snow here. and so on. And like that provided him with the information that he needed in order to like make the decision himself. It wasn't just me like saying you must wear a jacket, and it makes this huge difference to him, which I understand because I learned the same. Like I feel the same way. I want to understand why.
Yeah, I agree with you in the fact that like it's I feel like if I were a parent, it would be a lot of uh Rivet just said, you must is a great way to get pushback. I feel like I would be the person that would say, because I said so. This is not a great response. It's not going to help anything. Okay, this does bring up, and I know we have parents that watch, and I'm curious, Laura, what do you do in the why loops? Like, and they ask why a gazillion million times. No matter what you say, it's why.
It depends on what sort of the vibe is, I guess. Like, it would be like if it like thinking about that, like you should wear a jacket. No, oh, actually, let me show you that it's 38 degrees and talk about what that means relative to like actual freezing and so on. And then he had the information he needed. That it's hard for me to imagine a kid continuing to say why, because like the why is, oh, well, it's only 6 degrees above freezing. Why? Well, that's because in our measuring system, 32 degrees is the point at which water freezes. Why? Why does water freeze? Oh, because it's about density and chemistry and blah, 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 blah. And I can do this as long as you can, kid. You know?
That makes me happy.
Like, sure, you want to get into the chemistry, and then that's going to get into the physics, and then that's going to get into the math, and we'll have so much fun. Because, and I mean, I'm saying that like a joke, but it honestly is fun for me. So, in that sense, like I'm at a non-repeatable or like a non-generalizable advantage because it actually is fun for me to,
Okay.
you know, because I love learning and all of that stuff. And if there's something I don't know, that's like the best. And then we can learn about it together. If there isn't time, because like it's actually time to walk out the door to go to school now, then I, in that situation, would have said, okay, well, let's compromise. You need to take your jacket with you in case you change your mind. But you know what would happen if he didn't take, or if he refused to take his jacket and he refused, you know, all of that? Like, is he going to die? No. And they don't play, I mean, 38 degrees, you're not even going to get frostbite. Like, so worst case scenario, I don't actually force him. If we lived, you know, somewhere where you could actually get frostbite, then it would be like, well, okay, here are pictures of frostbite. We've done that with rashes, like when he didn't want to change his socks. I showed him pictures of athlete's foot.
Ew.
And then he was like, I'm going to change my socks.
Parents,
I've
parents
shown
go
him
through a
pictures
lot.
of diaper rash. You know, like back in the day, you know, was like, why do we need to change your diaper now? Well, here's a picture of diaper rash.
I like Ben's response of, all right, got a nope out of from meeting. I don't blame you. I do not blame you. I will say that it's definitely, there's a whole world that many of us don't consider if we're not living it. It's like, for example, we talked about the COVID things and accessibility and parenthood. I don't have kids. I have sisters that have kids. I know a lot of my friends have kids. I've traveled with kids, but my go-to way of getting them to shut up half the time in the nicest way possible is to distract them and try to give them candy and bribe them. I'm not the best babysitter, but they're alive. They are alive when I give them back. They just important. Might be very hyper. So it's definitely, I love that we are able to talk about and put ourselves in other people's situations. There are a few things, if I remember correctly, that we talked about last time or a couple times ago. Y'all, last week I was just like, did not feel good. I didn't sleep. It was very annoying. I just did not sleep last week. So sorry we missed this Monday last week. That was all
Mhm.
me. But
I did
during
my first, like, I'm just gonna solo stream and I don't know what I'm gonna stream about instead last week.
yeah? How'd it
Yeah.
go?
Fine. I talked to myself for 45 minutes. And it was fine.
Did you post it on social media that you were going live?
Um, yeah, actually, in because I had um Buffer has got support for Mastodon now. And
Oh,
so
good.
my Buffer post had already been scheduled to go for us. And
Hmm.
so I didn't change it to say, actually, it'll be just me.
Oh, perfect. I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I did.
I love it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's one of the fun things about learning to stream is just getting used to talking to ourselves. I will say the longest stream I have ever done is 5 hours. And it was because I was working through some coding stuff and um, it was like my first big project. But even when I was working on a presentation last week, I randomly went live because I'm like, I don't work well by myself. Like I can
Yeah.
get very, very distracted or like,
Mhm.
I don't know, body doubling is
I was
a
just
big
about
thing
to
for me.
say.
That's a big reason I'll stream when I'm working on something because I'm like body doubling.
Yep,
It's a thing. And
totally.
I'm going to look up what the official definition of body doubling is because I don't know if I know. What?
Um, just to finish the conversation about like what to do with the kids, like, so there are occasionally times when I have to just play the mom card and say more or less it's because I said so, but it's always I feel a lot of empathy in that situation because I would hate being told because I said so. Like, I what that suggests is I have no justification for what I'm saying right now except that I am saying it and I'm bigger than you, you
Okay.
know, which is crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so just acknowledging the this is crapness of what I'm doing to you right now. And so I'll say, I never say you have to do this just because I said so. If I can't explain my justification in the moment, like if there is just not enough time and it is absolutely essential that you are doing exactly what I'm saying right now, then I say that. I'll say, I can't explain it right now. It does really have to be this way, and I promise that later I will explain why it had to be this way right now. And that happens pretty rarely. And
Mhm.
so it's after we've built up a lot of trust. Like,
Mhm.
because I don't play that card unless I absolutely have to. They
Mhm.
know that I only play that card if I absolutely have to. And so they trust me when I say it absolutely has to be this way. And I can't explain right now, but I will.
That makes me think a lot about just communication and relationships in general.
Mhm.
Like, even starting this conversation of, I don't know why exactly, but this is, I don't, my initial response is no.
Mhm.
And I know it's an emotional response because there's plenty of times where, especially those, okay, I'm like on the have the opinion that all of us have been through trauma at some point on
Sure.
something. It is something's happened.
Yep.
Not everybody has a very big thing. Not everybody has complex trauma, meaning that it's something that's happened many, many different types of things.
Mhm.
And that is something that I have learned in this relationship is I don't always know why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. It just can be a reaction. And
Mhm.
just acknowledging that, like it's been weird, but there's been like times where something is bugging me, like Tyler putting his feet um, on the coffee table.
Mm.
99% of the time doesn't bug me. 1% of the time. I'll be like, dude, you need to stop doing this. I don't know why it's bugging me, but this is really, really bugging me. Please take them off. I don't exactly know why I'm having this reaction, but please work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And saying it like that instead of like,
Yep.
dude, just get off. He'll be like, okay, okay. Well, if you figure it out, we'll talk about this later.
Exactly.
And because a lot of emotions can be unknown.
Right. Right.
And I think that's very curious because there's also times where I get so overwhelmed hearing people talk. Like I'll want to support like people's live streams and stuff, or hang
Mm-hmm.
out with them while they're streaming, or listen to like a podcast. And there's been times where I'm like, this is random. I can't stand hearing anything. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, can't do it. Gotta shut down. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you had experiences like that too? Not necessarily either one of those, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I do the same thing where I'll say, like, I know that this feeling that I'm having right now is not rational. But this is what I'm experiencing right now. Um, and I mean, in like all kinds of relationships, but including with my kids. And I don't require their feelings to be rational either. Like it's a
Mhm,
two-way street. And so they
mhm,
can say, I feel like whatever, and I will, commit to not getting defensive or like angry or whatever about like the way that they're feeling, because
mhm,
feelings are not rational or are not obliged to be rational.
mhm,
Mind you, there does like in something that's like more significant than like feet on the coffee table, there can be like situations where we can't let the feelings run the show either.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so sometimes it has to be like, okay, I am acknowledging that this is the way I am feeling about this. um it is irrational, and it's not something that it's going to work out for you to respond to, so okay, I guess I'm you know just going to roll with it, and like try to process the feeling without having the situation resolve in the way that the feeling wants, if that makes sense.
It does. And it makes me also curious about, you and I both work in the tech world,
Mhm.
and we both code. There's also developer relations. There is live streaming. There is like getting frustrated at code. Like I would almost say it's very similar, but almost a very different dynamic that we that shows up in this tech world, you could say. How do you handle that? Like, I know for myself, like, for the example that I'm thinking of is like when I can't figure out how to fix this one stupid thing. And yes, I end up saying that is stupid and might yell at my computer, and then I try to get over it. Yet, how does that show up for you? And how do you work through it?
More or less in the same way. Um, and what I find is I've had enough experiences now, and so this is something where uh, it can show up in things like playing a video game, where you can be like working on a level and you just can't get it and can't get it and can't get it, and then you just like just walk away,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come back and the next day you can do it. And that's something that also works on all kinds of things. Like I did that when I was a math student. And oh hey, thanks,
Yeah, I was just,
James.
yay! Thanks, James. Welcome, everyone. This is
Yes.
Misc Monday, and we talk about a lot of random stuff. And at the
Hmm.
moment, we're talking about emotion when we're coding, or
Mhm.
emotion when we're both developer advocates. So like, where does this emotion show up? How do we deal with it? And specifically, we're talking about when we have a big coding thing that we're dealing with.
Mhm. Yep. And the way that I handle it is, if I possibly can, I will just close the window and do something else. It might not take it, it might just be like, I'll try it again in a couple of hours, or whatever. But if I possibly can, I just stop doing it, because you reach this point. It's called the point of diminished returns, and you're just like, you're not going to get anything more out of this. Like, banging your head against this
Right.
wall right now is not
Mhm.
going to accomplish anything further. It's hard though, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I just really want to fix this because it's broken and it needs to not be. And I'm mad, you know?
Mhm.
And so I just have to tear myself away.
That's interesting to me. And the fact that, like, and James, if you're still here, and everybody that's joined, we'd love to hear your input too.
Mhm.
Of like, huh, my, I'm ADHD. For
Same.
those who are joining right now, but like, my ADHD brain is going, you can't walk away. If you walk away, you'll never come back. What do you do? And it's a very, very, and we started talking about body doubling, and what that is for those who may not know is like, when you're working on stuff and there's just a person right next to you, or like online, like, I'll live stream and be working on stuff so that way I work on getting it done.
Oh, yay!
Yay.
Feel better.
And
Oh,
yeah, it's,
having a bug. I was reading it
yeah,
like, I have a bug, like a viral bug. And so that's
I
why the
think
feel better. But feel better either
I
way,
kind of think it still works. It still works. And um, it definitely is something that, like, how do you get back to it? Like you were mentioning earlier before the raid of, like, we have like a video game and the
Mhm,
level. Like,
mhm,
it sounds really weird, but in Dragon Age, I'm literally stuck on this expansion and level that I can't get through. Like, I've tried a million times.
mhm.
And I'm curious, like, how do you get back to it without that feeling of defeat, or getting through that feeling of defeat?
So I don't know if this would I'm sure this doesn't generalize, but have you seen The Princess Bride?
Mm. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Okay. So, night night, Wesley. Good work. I'll most likely kill you in the morning. That's what my code says to me in my head. And I laugh. Like, that's funny.
I think that really works. So for those who may not have seen The Princess Bride, which I am grabbing the link right now, you need to stop everything you're doing and go watch it.
Mhm.
And it's a great thing to break away from the code and come back. This is a movie that came out the year before I was born, and that is how much I love this movie. Of And part of the movie, we don't want to give away any spoilers, but is what Laura just said of sleep well, I'll kill you in the morning, basically.
Yep.
Meaning that do what you have to do now. You'll get attacked in the morning, or something will happen tomorrow, or something.
Mhm.
And I love that way of thinking of, like, okay, this may continuously happen,
Yep.
but yet I can persevere, or I
Mhm.
can be resilient, or there's other resources. So I'm curious because but me and names, dude. Is it said chamomile? Is that how you say their
I
name?
I mean, I've heard it pronounced both chamomile and chamomile.
Okay. I'm curious what the issue is. Because I
Yep.
think sometimes just talking it out, there's been plenty of times that I go to ask somebody a question, and then, like, as I'm explaining it to them, I'm like, I've deleted the question because I'm like, oh wait, I just figured it out. Thanks.
That is such a thing. I used to tell my students that when, oh yeah, so for anybody who's new, I was a math professor until about a year ago, and I used to tell my students that one of the best ways to get your question answered quickly is to start asking. Like, I had a template for like, this is the problem that I'm solving, because we were like doing this in like distance learning, and so they could post a question to everybody. And so like you had to answer like, this is the question I'm trying to solve, and this is what I've tried so far. This is why the ways that I've tried so far did not work. And then you can be like, now I need help. And if you follow those, like, because I used to do that, like I would be getting ready to email my professors and I would be like, I need to do all of my due diligence on this problem before I ask. Otherwise, it's going to be embarrassing. And 9 times out of 10, I answered my own question.
I think that's a great thing too, especially for anyone that's new in tech, or like I'm a bit newer in the fact that I started Teach Gen Tech, the show, like 7 months ago, and I didn't know any coding. And it's definitely something that I've asked for help. And sometimes you have to redirect and ask someone else. That's all I can say, because not everyone is a great teacher. And Laura is a phenomenal teacher. Hi, Bakari.
Hey, Bakari.
And Chamomile just said they're getting really annoyed at syntax. They just started school and they're learning C#. I don't know why I have such a problem saying C#. When previously coded in PHP.
Oh, I'm afraid I don't know C#.
I don't know C# either, yet I can say learning how to say this. If C# is your second language, my experience has been whatever your second language is the hardest language, because you are comparing it to the language you already know. And instead of being just like open, it's like, but wait, in this language, because I say this because I am learning TypeScript and Python at the same time. And y'all, I mean, I can figure things out. You're breaking all the rules. I mean, I break all the rules too. I'm learning, so every other Friday I have learning Python with Laura, and we are going with the bare basics. And then Josh Goldberg wrote a book called Learning TypeScript. And so he comes on, and TypeScript is a more complicated language, I would say, in the fact that it is, a lot of people can struggle with the type system. And like they can do a lot of JavaScript, but may not be able to do TypeScript. And I don't understand JavaScript all that well. So it's been fun asking him to take a step back, or Laura to take a step back. But at the same time, I've done more complex things that I'm like, wait, this very, very fundamental thing doesn't make sense, but I did XYZ. And it's really cool having them teach it because they can connect the dots. But all of that being said, learning one, and then I got to compare it to the other. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And
for me, I actually found learning the second language easier than the first. Now, I wasn't trying to learn them at the same time. I'm not even sure which one you would be considering to be the second at this point.
I would say Python, because yes, I've been learning Python probably longer, but I've done more stuff in JavaScript.
Sure.
So JavaScript makes more sense to me.
Yeah, so the very first programming language that I started learning was HTML. And then a few years later, I learned some basic Perl. And then I started in a CS1 class where we were working in C++. And C++ is a lower level language than Perl. Perl and Python are higher level languages. And like you don't have to declare your variable type in Python. You can, but you don't have to. You do have to in C++. And things were just a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned Python later, and I felt like learning Python was easier than learning C++, but not because of anything inherent, not because of like the typing or the syntax or anything like that, but because I had already struggled through sort of programming language concepts, like what is a function?
Okay.
And like what is, like if you're in, like you make some functions in one file and then you have to like import that file like as a utility, like a tools, a library, depending, a module, depending on what language you're working in. Like, but anyway, you're importing like the tools from some file into another and like returning what type of value are they returning any values? What type of the value are they returning? And like debugging and like planning out how to write a program, because like when you first start, you usually try to write like from top to bottom. Like
Mm-hmm.
first it does this, and then it does another thing, and then it does another thing, and then we are done. And when you're starting to write more complicated programs, like you don't want to work that way. You want to think about like, oh, okay, so I'm going to need a function that does this thing, but then that's internally going to need to call like a function that does this thing. And you work your way down into like the smallest little doll in the Matryoshka doll. And like you write just that one little function first. And then maybe you're writing like the function that's going to call that function.
Mm-hmm.
And so on, like just that way of thinking about coding itself that is language agnostic. Like it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
what language you're working in, these concepts are going to apply regardless. And so that was the biggest struggle for me, was the concepts that didn't belong to any particular language. And then once I'd mastered those, then learning like the syntax and whatever was just like, sure.
I think that is what I'm struggling with Python, because you and I are going through what I would call the fundamentals of
Mhm.
any programming language.
Yes.
Where with JavaScript and what I've learned with TypeScript and JavaScript is like I can look at the code and be able to figure out how to get it to work to each other. I just may not know their names and I may
Mhm.
not know why they're working together, but I can be like, okay, cool. Like I really wanted dates on my stream page, and I was able to figure out that I need to create a new not module. I'm forgetting the name right now, but I need to do a new thing in my TypeScript. And then it actually ended up working and I put the dates on. So it's like those kind of the weird things that I'm like, cool, I can figure it out, but I don't know what it actually means. So I'm curious with Chamomile's problem. First off, and this is something to like follow up of, where do you get resources? This is a big reason that I started teaching tech, because I will just have random people on. So, if we need to have somebody on about C sharp, I've never learned anything about C sharp. I wouldn't even know what C sharp looks like. Yeah, like is to make it a bit more accessible where people can ask questions.
Mhm.
I personally use Twitter a lot, and then I have my D&D Discord where I go, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Could you please help?
Mhm.
And live streaming, because people will find your stream and ask questions. Oh, yes, that is a great resource. Great resource. Yes. It does, though. It does. It
It's
does. I 100%
wrong.
agree.
A lot of the
Huh?
time, it's wrong and confident about it. Um,
Yeah, like I would say at least, and I don't know how Chamomile handles it, but what they just said was they asked Chat GPT how to do something, And I ask to get me unstuck because at least it's like XYZ might go into it and then I can go fact check it and Google it and be like, oh, okay, so it may not work exactly like Chat GPT said, but I at least have more of the vocabulary to go Google because I don't know what it's actually called.
Uh-huh. That's what I like large language models for, is writer's block. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the thing about it though is that like it's trained on, for the coding parts, it's trained from Stack Overflow. And so for me, like I'm thinking about, okay, so I could go, okay, yeah. So okay, in the case where I can't even figure out how to ask my question. Well, I guess I don't know. Like, so you're saying that it would come up with vocabulary that you don't have. How do you ask GPT to solve your problem? Like, what do
For
you say
example,
to the model?
yeah, like I literally said, how do I fix my image size based on this code? And I just copy and paste the entire code in there. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, you should probably do XYZ. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But it gives me the code example, but then it also says what that is called to do it. Like, you need to
Gotcha.
change this variable. I'm
Mm-hmm.
spitballing, but and then
Sure.
I go, oh, that's what that's called. Or like I've copy and pasted a piece of code and been like, in JavaScript, what is this called? And it'll tell me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to me. Like, because it's more like in the way that a lot of us learned to use Wikipedia, say, like teachers would usually say, you can't cite Wikipedia. But what you can do is you search for something and you find like an article about that thing in Wikipedia, and then you can look at Wikipedia's sources. So and Wikipedia can tell you like more vocabulary and so on, like you were saying. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes complete sense to me. I was worried because I was thinking that you and Chamomile were saying like that Chat GPT can actually solve the problem, and it probably can't a lot of the time. But what it can do is provide like some infrastructure for you to have
Mm-hmm.
more vocabulary, like you were saying. That makes complete sense.
I would say that it also really helps. Yeah, because Chamomile said that they like it for explanations it gives
Hmm.
as well. It also just, and this is so funny, as you're talking about Wikipedia, something that I absolutely love about our streams, no matter if it's Misc Monday or our Python Fridays, is you're an amazing teacher. What up, Jay?
Hey
And
Jay.
also, you understand like words, learning, because you talked about Wikipedia, and I'm like, that would have meant that I actually needed to like go understand how to do a research paper. And I'm like, I never did that. I never ever. I've always failed my research papers. And thank you, Jay. Like Josh being the other live stream um for learning TypeScript, he like makes me read the stuff. He's like, you can't just skip through it. You have to read it. And it's actually really funny. Yet
Hmm.
it's really hard for me to go read it. And y'all make me a better student.
It I think it makes a lot of sense. So a math educator named Dan Meyer had a catchphrase that was like, if math is the aspirin, what's the headache? And so the idea was that you get the students to a point where they want to solve a problem, like they want a tool to solve this problem because they've
Mm-hmm,
tried all the tools that they already have to solve the problem, and they
mm-hmm.
can't solve the problem. So you give them the headache before you give them the aspirin. Like, so say like one of the, let me grab I'm just going to grab his blog post because it's going to show this so much better than I can describe.
And while you do that, really quick, Jay, how was your stream? Because I really wanted. I saw you started streaming like half an hour before we did it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna miss Jay's stream. And oh yes, as somebody who suffers from migraines, they would rather not have headaches. I do not blame you.
I also have migraines and would rather not have headaches. So you can think of it in any way that works for you. Let me get back to us and then I can share my screen. Oop. Okay. Ba-ba-bum.
Oh, Jay said that landscaping came early and cut off the stream. Yes. Yep, that is a thing.
So let me.
Yeah, I was like, can you zoom in like a million times? Because I can't see it all.
Okay. So we don't need to
Thank
read this whole thing, but I just wanted to see the. He doesn't have the picture. I thought it was going to have the picture. Oh, this is going to be it. Or it'll have one of them. Something like this. So you present the students with like a situation. I mean, basically, it's word problems.
Yeah.
But they're word problems with like a visual. And so you can look at this and you can think like, okay, so you just show them the video and just like wait for people to ask, questions and like what are some questions that you can think of to ask about this thing. And so like one question might be like, how long does it take to fill up? And so guess as close as you can. And then they give you an answer is too high is really insightful, right? Because they're like, how do you, if it's too high, how do you know that it's too high? And similarly, if you're sure that this is too low, what makes you so sure? Because having those two like boundaries, like an upper bound and a lower bound, that you're really quite sure are correct, helps you to figure out like, okay, if this is true, and that is true, then what must be true about the correct answer, and so on, and then figuring out all these other little like bits and pieces, like what information you need to know to solve the problem, and then actually solving the problem eventually. So he calls this 3-act math, and it's just that same thing that we were talking about like an hour ago about the discovery method of learning, like posing, like getting to the point where people have a question about something, they have a problem they want to solve, and they have exhausted the tools in their toolbox, and now they need a new tool. That is the perfect time to teach them the new tool. And the problem in a lot of math education is we teach the tool and then we like use the tool 50 times, and then we have 2 word problems at the end that show a situation in which you could actually use the tool to solve something. So it's backwards.
Got
and
it.
I think that this happens in all kinds of situations besides math education.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think that's something that we all kind of struggle with, because like if like what Chamomile was saying of like, I feel like it like helps, like Chat GPT helps with like the vocabulary, yet you don't really know what the problem is to go solve it. Yet it's kind of like taking, I would say it's like taking your pre-aspirin. It's like drinking more water before you take aspirin. I feel like that's what Chat GPT does in that situation.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm going with. That's what I'm going with. Now, I'm also curious, because everybody is back. I'm totally gonna just like switch the conversation to Octothorpe.
Oh, yes. So I kept a list not during the last Miscellaneous Monday. During the Python stream, we had lots of opportunities to go off topic. And we actually created Miscellaneous Mondays because we started off trying to just do the Python streams, and we would go off topic, and we were just never going to get anywhere fast. And so I started making a list during our Python stream last time.
Copy and
There's
pasted
the list of things of rabbit holes we did not go down, so that we could move on. We could keep focused, sort of, on the Python stream. We did pretty good. Yeah,
we did pretty good.
So here we go.
Oh, really quick, because I just had an idea.
Yeah,
because you're not going to be available on Friday. What if I'm just gonna say, hey Jay, I'm gonna probably DM you later to see if you're available on Friday for our episode of Learning Python, because Laura's not, and I've been really debating how doing getting through that chapter is going to. Yes, Jay, you are okay. It's interesting because with Python, I only know a very small amount of people that are Pythoners.
Pythonistas. Yeah.
Ooh.
That's the actual term.
I like it. Pythonistas.
Yes.
I only know a few Pythonistas, and Laura, Jay. I mean, I am now going to be watching every once a month for Jay's Python community. So that way I learn even more Pythonistas. And yes.
Yay.
I'm so excited. Well, I will be able to learn more about Python, because a lot of it is just asking the questions of hey, how does this connect? And yeah. But thank you, Jay. I will follow up with you. But Octothorpe.
Thorpe, I think.
Thorpe. Oh yeah, I did that last time too.
So, what context did that come up in? I don't even remember. We were talking about the different names for the symbol that we have variously known as the hash mark, the number sign, the pound sign. Hashtag is also known as an octothorpe, apparently from the 8 points on its circumference.
I remember that Jay told us about it, and then we went into a whole ordeal about how there needs to be a superhero, and that Jay was going to be writing children's Python books.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks, Marcy. Yep.
Oh, yay. It was Marcy. Yes.
Yeah. So I was trying to think, the definition that I found said it was an octothorpe because of the 8 points on its circumference. And that was making me bristly, because I was like, it doesn't have a circumference because it's not a circle. It's linear. It is so not a circle. And of course, what they mean is if you were to circumscribe that symbol within a circle, it would touch the circle 8 times. Got it.
That's not complicated at all.
Because so it's got 2 vertical lines, right? And then the 2 horizontal lines.
Yeah, they're never.
So there are 2 points at the top. So if you drew a circle around it, around the hashtag. Let me get my tablet. I'm going to draw it.
Do it. And all the Googles keeps just telling me it's the symbol that we call hashtag. It's not really giving me anything more than that.
I mean, if you're going to call something octo something, it had better have an 8 somewhere, right? Those. Those are the rules. Okay. So let me figure out how to connect here.
I'm currently looking up the villains. Oh, wait. Which is just coming up with a lot of really random podcasts. To throw up the character. There's a World of Warcraft.
Oop. Go the other way. Trying to figure out how to get my tablet in as another screen. I know we solved this once, and I just don't remember how I did it.
Okay, so Marcy said hashtag #, tic-tac-toe symbol. Yes.
Yeah, that's another one.
Octothorpe.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jay said that the Octothorpe is a top-down view of an octopus, not canon. And
Nope, that's not it.
I looked up that there's a dude on World of Warcraft, which this makes me happy.
Okay. So how do I... Okay, I can mirror the presenter page. How?
Can you just show it on the screen? Maybe.
I'm trying.
Maybe like hold
okay,
it up
wait.
to the
Maybe
camera.
to share. Hang on. Let me see if I can.
Technology, y'all. It is our friend. It is also difficult.
Oh my God. Yes. I spent a lot of time this weekend fighting with my... Okay, I'm sorry for the inception. Everybody close your eyes for a second. Okay. Open your eyes. Can you see a grid?
Yes.
Yay! Okay.
You did it.
I spent most of the weekend fighting smart home type stuff like lights and so on. So I'm really feeling you on the tech is our friend and our greatest enemy. So okay. Oop, let's make that better. Oop, my earbud just fell out. That's cool. Okay. So here we have our hashtag, right? And if we, you know what, I'm going to make that in a different color. Put a circle. We're going to pretend that this is actually a circle around our hashtag, and I will extend I will draw the lines after. That would make more sense. Okay.
This is why you hang out with math professors and math teachers. You never know what they're going to teach you.
Hey. Damn. Okay. I can only erase it. Okay. So if we make our lines now that we actually have a circle.
Marcy started
so we have a hashtag
conversation last time.
True. So we have our hashtag inside a circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to grab another color. Okay. I'll grab a color that people can actually see. All right. So we hit our we're intersecting this circle.
Thank you. I was just about to ask, can you make it bigger?
Yeah. So like right here, this is an intersection of the hashtag with the circle circumscribing it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. We hit it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7
that
times,
makes so much more
8
sense
times.
because I was like, but there's 9 boxes for tic-tac-toe. But there's only 8 line interceptions.
Intersections. Yeah.
Intersections.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm
Dig it.
trying to unlearn being picky about these things with varying degrees of success. Okay.
Yay. We were able to see it. I'm very excited.
Now can I? Yeah.
Are you good on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am satisfied. Are you satisfied?
I am satisfied because I gotta learn so much. But I am gonna say before we start wrapping up today, because y'all, I got another meeting at the top of the hour and I need a bio break beforehand. So I was like, yo, Laura, can we end a little early? Because, life. Anything else that anyone had questions on before we start wrapping up? Random things to say, random shout outs. Go follow each other.
I love that on Miscellaneous Monday, we had a list of how many things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to talk about from the Python stream. And we talked about 1, which is greater than 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we have Misc Mondays for.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
and I can just keep the list. Mm-hmm.
You can add it. I think we can add it to a discussion on the repo. Can you add a discussion to the repo?
I think that discussions are a paid feature.
Oh, are they? I don't want a paid feature. I don't like paid features. No, I do like paid features. I just don't like paying for them. That is probably the proper way of saying that.
We could add it to a README. I mean, we can put a file in there. But yeah, we can't do a discussion. I hate what I'm about to say so much, but we could have a Discord.
Okay, why don't we do issues? Because then anybody can put them in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we could resolve them when we talk about them.
And that'll be so satisfying.
It will. Yeah. It will.
Okay, so we can just make issues for each one of the questions.
Okay, so if anybody would like to put random things for us to talk about on Mondays, please submit them in the issues, and we will possibly talk about them. Who knows if we'll actually get through them all. We end up going on random tangents. So.
Oh, can you add me as like a maintainer for this repo?
Yeah. Yeah. I do need to do that. I'll figure that out. It's under settings. There we go. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful, beautiful Monday. And let me go find somewhere. Yeah. All right.
And you enjoy the best time on Friday.
We will. Thank you all. Bye.
Okay, bye.